You weren't beaten. You weren't locked in a room. You weren't starved. And yet, there's something inside you that flinches, something that goes quiet in rooms full of people, something that apologizes for breathing too loud. You've spent years trying to explain a wound that left no bruise. And the worst part? You've convinced yourself you have no right to bleed. But what if I told you the thing that hurt you most was the thing no one ever saw? Stay with me on this, because what you're about to hear might explain everything. Let me tell you about someone. Let's call her Maya. Maya grew up in a clean house, food on the table every night, new shoes at the start of every school year. If you drove past her home, you'd think everything was fine, and technically, it was. Her parents never raised a hand to her, not once. But here's what her parents did do. When Maya came home excited about a drawing she made in class, her mother glanced at it and said, "That's nice," without looking up from her phone. When Maya cried after a kid at school called her ugly, her father said, "Stop being so sensitive. Toughen up." When Maya tried to talk about feeling scared at night, she was told, "You have a roof over your head. What do you have to be scared about? No bruises, no scars, no evidence." But Maya learned something in that house. She learned that her feelings were an inconvenience, that her emotions were too much, that the safest version of herself was the smallest one. Now Maya is 27. She struggles to express what she needs in relationships. She over-apologizes. She feels guilty for being sad. She doesn't know why she flinches when someone raises their voice, even playfully. She doesn't trust her own feelings because somewhere deep inside, a voice still whispers, "You're overreacting." Does any of this sound familiar? Here's the thing. No one talks about enough. We have an incredibly narrow definition of harm. When most people hear the word abuse, their mind jumps to the extreme. Hitting, yelling, visible chaos. And if your experience didn't look like that, you disqualify yourself. You tell yourself it wasn't that bad. You compare your pain to someone else's and decide yours doesn't count. But pain is not a competition, and some of the deepest damage doesn't come from what was done to you. It comes from what was never given to you. There's a term for this, and I want you to hear it clearly. Emotional neglect. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It doesn't make for obvious stories. It's the absence of something. The absence of being seen. The absence of being heard. The absence of being validated simply for being a child who had feelings. And here's why it's so dangerous. Because when someone hits you, you can point to it. You can name it. You know something wrong happened to you. But when someone simply wasn't there emotionally, when your sadness was met with silence, when your excitement was met with indifference, when your fear was met with dismissal, you don't walk away thinking something was done to you. You walk away thinking something is wrong with you. Let that sink in for a moment. You didn't grow up thinking your parents failed you. You grew up thinking you failed at being easy enough to love. And that belief didn't stay in childhood. It followed you. It's in the way you don't speak up when something bothers you. It's in the way you keep your struggles to yourself because you don't want to be a burden. It's in the way you feel like you're too much and not enough at the exact same time. That's not a personality trait. That's an adaptation. That's a survival strategy you built when you were 5 years old, and it worked back then. Being small kept you safe. Being quiet kept the peace. Needing nothing meant no one could let you down. But you're not 5 anymore, and the armor that once protected you is now the thing keeping everyone out. Let me give you another example. Think about a child who gets straight A's. Everyone calls them gifted. Teachers love them. Parents show off their report cards. But no one ever asks them how they feel. No one notices that this child works obsessively because they learned that achievement is the only thing that gets attention. That love in their house was conditional, paid out in approval, and withdrawn in disappointment. That child grows up to be an adult who burns out constantly, who ties their entire worth to productivity, who feels empty on vacations because rest feels like failure, who doesn't know who they are outside of what they can do for others. From the outside, everyone says, they're so driven, so impressive, but on the inside, that person is exhausted and terrified because they believe, on a level so deep they can't even articulate it, that the moment they stop performing is the moment they stop mattering. That wound doesn't come from being hit, it comes from only being loved for what you produced, never for who you were. And this is where it gets even more complicated, because many of the people who hurt us this way genuinely loved us. They weren't villains. They were often people carrying their own unprocessed pain. Your father, who told you to toughen up? Maybe his father never let him cry either. Your mother, who dismissed your feelings? Maybe no one ever validated hers. Hurt people raise hurt people, not out of cruelty, out of blindness. And this creates one of the most confusing emotional experiences a human being can have. Loving someone and simultaneously carrying the wound they gave you, knowing your parents did their best, and also knowing their best still left marks. Those two truths can live side by side. You don't have to choose one, but here's what I need you to hear. Understanding why someone hurt you does not mean the hurt doesn't count. Forgiveness and acknowledgement are not enemies. You can have compassion for their story and still honor your own. Pause on that for a moment, because some of you have been waiting your entire life for permission to feel what you actually feel. Now let me tell you what this kind of invisible wound actually does to your brain. When a child's emotional needs are consistently unmet, their nervous system adapts. It learns to suppress. It learns to scan for danger in people's facial expressions. It learns that vulnerability is a risk, not a bridge. This is why you might feel anxious in relationships that are actually safe. Your body doesn't trust safety because safety was never consistent when you were young. This is why a partner saying, "We need to talk," sends your heart racing, not because of what they might say, but because your nervous system remembers every time your feelings were shut down, and it's bracing for it again. You're not broken. You're responding to old data. Your body is running a program that was installed decades ago, and it never got an update. So, here's the twist. The part that might change the way you see everything. You've probably spent years trying to fix yourself, reading self-help books, going through phases of journaling, wondering why you can't just be normal, wondering why relationships feel so hard, why you feel so tired, why happiness feels like something you have to earn rather than something you're allowed to simply feel. But what if you were never broken in the first place? What if everything you are, the overthinking, the sensitivity, the hypervigilance, the people-pleasing, what if all of it was just proof that you survived something real? Not a war, not a catastrophe, but something quieter, something that happened in the spaces between words, in the silence where comfort should have been, in the empty room where someone should have sat beside you and said, "I see you." What you're feeling matters. You weren't broken by what happened. You were shaped by what was missing. And here's what healing actually looks like. Since we're being honest with each other, healing doesn't look like suddenly being fine. It doesn't look like forgiving everyone overnight and moving on with a smile. Healing looks like the first time you say, "That hurt me," without apologizing after. It looks like letting someone see you cry without performing strength. It looks like sitting with a feeling you've been running from your entire life and realizing it doesn't kill you. Healing looks like choosing yourself after a lifetime of being trained to choose everyone else. And it's slow, and it's unglamorous, and some days it feels like you're going backward, but you're not. You're just finally feeling things you were never allowed to feel, and that takes a kind of courage no one gives you credit for. Before I leave you with this, I want you to do something. I want you to think about the version of you that was small, the version of you that needed someone to say, "Your feelings are real. You're not too much. You're not too sensitive. You are not the problem." No one said it then. So let me say it now. What happened to you mattered, even if no one saw it, even if there are no scars to prove it, even if the people who caused it didn't mean to. It still mattered. You are not crazy for hurting. You are not weak for still carrying it. And you are not too late to start putting it down. They never hit you, and it still hurt. And that is the truth you were always allowed to speak. If this reached something in you that you've been carrying quietly, you're not alone in it. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do for another person is to show them their invisible wound is finally allowed to be seen.